You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2, another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
All right, everyone, we are live. This is Zain Zinger Part 2. My name is Zain Bando. It is Sunday morning, January 4th, 2026. I can't believe I'm saying that already. It is unbelievable to even remotely think that we are in 2026. That's right. This is Zain Zinger Part 2. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. We have a lot to get to on today's program. We were on here last Saturday. We're back to Sundays now, thanks to the 11 people that have already joined the stream this morning. We'll probably go about 45 minutes to maybe an hour as we have a little bit more time on today's program. But nonetheless, though, excited to see how this all plays out, and just in regards to potentially what questions we may have. We're live across all different kinds of platforms as well. You can check out this show a bunch of different places. Sunday's episode and or replay, YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and X, my personal platforms, ETB's personal platforms, etc., etc. Again, would be very much appreciated if you guys tuned in. Watch this right now or later on. Send me your questions, and I'll do my very best to get to those moving forward. But nonetheless, though, excited to see you guys today. Excited to get into what we're going to be discussing. And yeah, very much looking forward to it. By the way, Bando's Breakdowns episode 72. Why have you guys here? It's going to be January 9th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. New episodes for the 2026 Bando's Breakdown season will return next week. All right, let's get started, though, with the program. First order of business is the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl. Let's talk about it. I went down to Nashville for this bowl game. It was the Illinois Fighting Illini, my alma mater, versus the Tennessee Volunteers. So let's talk about it. This is my third bowl game that I covered as a member of the media. We've done all of Bret Bielema's bowl games so far as Illinois coach. We've done, obviously, the first one being the ReliaQuest Bowl, which was Mississippi State. That was the year that Mike Leach passed away, obviously. And then, of course, Illinois did not go to a bowl game the next year. They went 5-7. And then last season, they won 10 games, and that 10th win was against South Carolina. South Carolina had Lenora Sellers, and they had a bunch of NFL caliber talent on that team, and Illinois was able to win. And this year, Illinois went 9-4 with a win in the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl against Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers. So that's now back-to-back bowl wins. First time an active head coach has ever done it for Illinois. There's been a stat going around that that Vic Koenig also did it. That's partially not true because Vic Koenig was the interim coach the second time Illinois won its bowl game. So it's the first time that an active Illinois coach has won back-to-back bowl games as well. So huge win for Illinois. Gets them 9-4. Or excuse me, 9-4 to end and a very interesting season, a season where they could have been college football playoff eligible. For much of it, they took themselves out of that conversation with losses to Washington and Wisconsin, but nonetheless, though, a pretty good year to cap it off for Luke Altmaier and the senior Illinois class. So that was huge. But let's talk about my experience overall, kind of what happens as a member of the media when you go to one of these bowl games, because I feel like not a lot of people really talk about the media process and how it kind of works. So I can get into that. We'll go into a full recap of my experience and then the game itself, how awesome the game was. We'll go over a couple numbers as well from the game and just my overall thoughts. But let's start from the beginning, though. So I get down there Sunday night. Monday morning is the press conference with both coaches. We'll get to the press conference story in just a little bit. It was actually my fault that my press conference track did not go as well as I would have hoped. Nonetheless, though, let's get started with that. So you find out when the bowl game is, and shortly after that, you kind of do some digging and you figure out where the credential application is, because without applying for a credential, the bowl doesn't know you're interested in covering their game. That's kind of how it works. You have to apply as a member of the media in order to go to one of these things. So very as soon as possible, if you know you're going, you gotta put it in, and you wait about a week or so to hear a response. And of course, I was approved. I'm just going to be transparent. I have a pretty good success rate of getting approved to various sporting events in the college and combat sports realm of things. So that's a major positive, which I'm very pleased with, and I'm very happy, and I hope it stays consistent. Nonetheless, though, so that's kind of how that works. So you get approved first to begin with before you do anything. And then after you do that, you sort of plan. So I got approved, I think it was probably mid-December at some point, maybe 10 days before I left. So I knew I was going. Then you book your media hotel, which they tell you where the media is staying. Not everybody does because of just the overall, what do you call it? Not everybody stays there because of just how much it is, or if said outlet isn't willing to cover that expense or something like that. But I stayed at the media hotel. And what's interesting about my situation, without going too deeper into it, is I'm fully independent media, so all the expenses that I have are solely based on me. So every single trip I take, or every single time I'm telling you guys I'm going somewhere, it's a connection investment for my career, because eventually I am an independent member of the media, but eventually when I do go full time, I want hopefully one day a place, I'm not going to say specifics, but a place where they see my value. They see that my freedom to cover whatever I want is actually a benefit to me and not a burden, and not giving me assignments that I don't want. That's a longer conversation for another day, but I'm trying to plant a seed for eventually what my career can end up being in a situation like I'm formulating. But nonetheless, though, that's the boring stuff. So you get approved, and then you get your media hotel all situated. Then you go down. So you go down, and the first day is usually press conferences. So I went down. Unfortunately, missed Bret Bielema's press conference because the direction they told us to go was extremely confusing. And yeah, not it was not the most convenient. But let's just say saw Josh Heupels, and I actually got to meet with Bret right as he was leaving. But yeah, Josh Heupel spoke. The offensive coordinator for Tennessee spoke, as well as the defensive coordinator. So you sit there and you listen to them. They usually go about 15 minutes. You can ask questions if you want. I didn't have questions for really any of them that were up there that day. So I took notes and then I went back and I wrote stories off the press conferences because the video feeds were already there. And after that, I wrote a bunch of stuff. And then by the time I was done with that, it was time to relax. And then eventually it was time to go to what's called Battle of the Bands. It's an annual tradition for the Music City Bowl specifically. And yeah, it's where the Illinois and Tennessee bands participate against one another to see who the best band between the two bowl teams is. Apparently, for the 10th year in a row, I didn't fully watch Battle of the Bands because it was freezing outside when I went. But according to the Music City Bowl officials, it was a tie between Illinois and Tennessee. And apparently, that's the 10th year in a row that this bowl is at a tie in the Music City Bowl for Battle of the Band. So that was fun. Then there was a radio show. It was Bret Bielema's radio show. He wasn't a part of it for this episode because I think he was busy with some meetings and whatnot. So we didn't see him, but they did do Bret Bielema's radio show. He had guests on, Brian Barnhart, who's the play-by-play voice for Illinois for the radio, hosted it as usual. Does a fine job. And Brian, I don't know if you're watching, but if you are, thanks for all the support that you give me every time I see you in Champaign or at the NCAA tournament or the Big Ten tournament. It means a whole heck of a lot. You're one of the best in the business. Anyway, that was really cool. Got to meet and see some fans who pay attention to my work, which is very cool. I even had a guy come up to me. I think he was from Orland Park, which is a suburb here in Chicagoland area, and say that he's seen me on message boards and seen my stuff cited places and stuff like that. So he wanted a photo. So that was really cool. So from a general announcement standpoint, shout out to Illini Nation. Anyone who came up to me during Bull Week, greatly appreciate you. Thanks so much for following my work. It means a lot. It tells me that you really like what I'm doing. It tells me that you like my written content. It tells me that you like stuff like this, like we're doing right now, this Zain Zinger Part 2 stream, which shout out to the 28 people in here that are watching this morning. You could be doing a lot of other things with your time on a Sunday morning, but I commend you guys for coming in, watching this, supporting me, and hearing what I have to say. So shout out to that guy who took a picture with me. It meant a great deal to him. It seemed like it was very cool. And yeah, so that was Monday. Tuesday was game day. So how game day works is you can pretty much hang out all day until the game. So it was kind of awesome. So I hung out for much of the day, did some work. It was really cold that day. And we actually had plans to leave at 4 in the morning. My mom had to be home for something. So we packed and we did a bunch of other miscellaneous things before going over to the Music City Bowl. So that was really cool. And then I went over to the game itself. So you go to a game as a member of the media. How it works is on your credential, they tell you what you have access to and what you don't. So I technically had access to the field pre and post game, but it was so cold that I was not in the mood to even go on the field. It was way too cold. And that is a cop-out answer a little bit because I did miss being physically right there for the trophy presentation and all that stuff. But it was warm in the press box. Nissan Stadium was a very nice press box. It's an old stadium. It's being knocked down in a couple of years, so it was the only time that I'll ever see it unless I go back to Nashville for a Titans game for fun, which I don't know why I would, but if there was ever a reason to go back for a Titans game, I guess I would see Nissan Stadium one more time, but I would see it as a fan because I don't cover the NFL like that. So that'd be a unique experience to say that I've been in that press box and to also say that that I also came to Nissan Stadium as a fan would be pretty cool, but that remains to be seen if that ever occurs. Nonetheless, though, great press box experience. Had my own very beautiful setup. 50-yard line, had a TV above me, which was fantastic. got to flip between all the channels before the game. Caught the end of the bowl game that was before the Illinois game, which was really, really fun. I think it was Coastal Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, which was right before Illinois took the field and played Tennessee, which actually is a perfect segue into the game itself. So this game, I got to tell you, for a non-college football playoff bowl game, absolutely electric. You want to talk about one of the best bowl games I've been to out of the three? This is either number one or number 1A, or even I don't know how I'd rank the three I've been to so far, but holy cow, was this game awesome. You had Luke Altmaier in his final game. You had Joey Aguilar for Tennessee playing through an injury, which he was injured, and he even got operated on his shoulder, or got treatment on his shoulder a few days after the game was over. That's how banged up it was. But holy cow, this game was freaking awesome. So it was a back and forth, knockdown, drag out track meet between two teams that needed to prove themselves on a national stage, not being college football playoff teams this year. And it was just a great game. Luke Altmaier had a great game. The Illinois ran the ball well, but defensively, they were just kind of horrible. They couldn't stop anything, and there was obviously the huge return for a touchdown, which gave Tennessee a 28-27 lead. And of course, Illinois took the ball with about 4 minutes to go and drove down the field. 69-yard drive, I think, is what it was, and set up a David Alano game-winning field goal. That's the summary Cliff Notes version of it, which, by the way, was yet another game-winning drive for Illinois. They'd won earlier in the season versus USC at home. That was the homecoming game, which was one of the best games of the entire year. That USC team, led by Lincoln Riley, that was also supposed to be a playoff contending team, and USC missed the postseason themselves. So, great game overall. And then I want to talk about the question I asked Bret Bielema after the game. So, let's just say this in a nutshell. Coach B and I go pretty way back. I met him even before he coached a game at U of I in 2021. He did a autograph signing before a Cubs game. Usually, once a year, Illinois does a Cubs night where they'll bring out Bret Bielema. They'll sometimes bring out his players, but the first year it was just Bielema, and it was two basketball players, two guys that didn't stay with Illinois much longer after that. So in the first year, to give you some context, it was Bret Bielema, having not coached a game in Illinois yet. It was Andre Curbelo, and it was also Omar Payne, and both of those guys did not last in Illinois much longer after that meet and greet. But what was cool about Bret Bielema, and what was cool about the very first time I ever interacted with Coach, and the very first time I ever met Coach, was he spoke to me for 15 minutes. And he spoke to every single person that he met for 15 minutes. And he asked me, oh, how hard is your journalism major? What do you want to do? And stuff like that. And I just remember the conversation being very, very fluid. And I didn't know when I was going to see him again because I wasn't a member of the media yet. And I went back every year. I've gone back every year since, and I've met him on several occasions since. We have two publicly known pictures together. And if we have more that people have taken since 21, I've never seen them. So if you guys want to send me more Bielema pictures that maybe I've never seen with he and I, that'd be appreciated. But nonetheless, though, very nice guy, very approachable human being there. And I knew that there was going to be a report one day. I just didn't know when. And when I finally reintroduced myself in 2024, that's when I noticed a shift in Coach taking a liking to me and my work. So he just started, I remember this 2024 conversation well. He started going on and asking about just my career and where I wrote and that I've covered him before. And that this is who I was and stuff. So I knew it was planting the seed for what would be the season. So I asked him a couple questions this year, and one of them stuck out to me. And I'll get to the bowl game question in a minute because it's actually a perfect segue. I asked him, during the bye week, like given where you guys are, and given that you guys fell to a team, or given that you guys have this stretch coming up to where you guys can still control your destiny at that point to get into the CFP, because at the time they could. Um, he not only talked about that, but he gave me this great answer where he's like, I've been managing behind the scenes, and I've been going on the road, and I've been talking to prospective recruits, and just kind of the overall changing landscape of college football, in so many words, tells me that I'm doing things the right way, and that I'm really proud of what I've been able to do, and what I've been able to cultivate and achieve, and used all these different terms. So after the bowl game, I had to ask him this. I'm like, Coach, how are you going to remember the 2025 season? How is this going to be quantified? And it's on my social medias. Currently, he gave me this very, very succinct 2-minute answer where it felt real. It felt like it wasn't fluff. Um, he talked about how this is a team that beat two SEC teams in bowl games in back-to-back seasons. This is a team that was a top 25 team for much of the year, and this was a team that was very resilient. And he talked about how Miles Scott and Luke Altmaier, who were both present at the post-game press conference, were the embodiments of what his program represents, and how hardworking they are, and just how dedicated they are to being the best they could be at their sport. And he went on and on for 2 minutes, and he just, the way he was energized, and the way he just stayed with me the whole time, and the way he understood where I was coming from, and the way everything flowed was just really, really, really special to me. And and I'm just gonna say this because it happened. I mean, I just told him, I again after the question, when we were all done, I told him, congratulations, and he said, appreciate you, and the way he said appreciate you, to me, was just very authentic and very open and very warm, and I just loved everything about the interaction. So actually, we might have some good news about Coach down the pipeline. I don't want to talk about what that good news is yet, but given what he likes to say during the offseason, the best is yet to come. That's a perfect segue into the college football playoffs so far. Let's talk about what we've learned. Ohio State is no longer in the college football playoff, which is actually a perfect segue into talking about the elephant in the room, which is Ryan Day on the hot seat? It's a great question. So Miami upsets the defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes 24-14 in the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas, New Year's Eve. And this is a big question. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And anybody who thinks he is downright mistaken, completely ignorant, does not understand the landscape of any of this crap. I don't believe it for a second. He's not on the hot seat for a few reasons. Number one, he just won the national championship a year ago. He admitted after the game that he didn't have his guys ready to go. And he also admitted that Julian Sayin, his quarterback, has a lot of work to do and knows he can be successful if put in the right frame of mind, the right situation, whatever you want to call it. So this tells me overall, though, that Day understands. He understands the vision. He understands that sometimes you're going to go through adversity. Sometimes things aren't going to make sense. And sometimes as well, when you lose, it actually makes you stronger as a team because you know what that feeling feels like. And he wants his guys to realize that they don't want to experience that same feeling over again. Because if they do that, there's a question of, okay, was Ryan Day really, really, really invested in this year's program? And if he can fix the mistakes that they made in this game against the Hurricanes for next season, especially assuming they can retain Jeremiah Smith, assuming he doesn't go to Miami, which I don't think he will. There's a crazy rumor that he might. I completely doubted he'd be a goof to go to Miami. He's the heart and soul of that Ohio State offense. It would make no sense. It would be the biggest transfer portal shock in the history of the transfer portal. I don't think Jeremiah Smith's going to Miami. I wouldn't read into it for a second. And there's no reputable reports at the moment that suggest that he's going to Miami. So I would get that out of your head. Let's talk about the semifinal, though. So what we learned in the quarterfinal is Ole Miss is legit, even without Lane Kiffin. They knocked off Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And then we got to talk about Indiana. We got to spend at least a few minutes on Indiana. Indiana dominates Alabama 38-3. Okay, giving Kurt Signetti his first college football playoff win as head coach. I think he's now won 27 of 29 games so far in the few years he's been there. I think it's now 2 seasons that he's finishing up. This is the second year. You want to talk about dominance? You want to talk about just complete, utter, just a demolition of an Alabama team that looked like they were the underdog story, looked like after the Oklahoma comeback that they could give Indiana fits. Ty Simpson gets benched for Austin Mack in the second half. Really? You let an offensive lineman win the MVP award? Like I don't understand what happened to Alabama, but I can tell you this: Indiana is legit. They have a mission. Their mission is to get to Miami. They will do anything they can to make it possible. And they have a rematch on their hands against the Oregon Ducks, who shut out Texas Tech 23-0. Was Texas Tech not very good? I'm not so sure, but I can tell you this. Oregon is motivated. Oregon won the 2024 Big Ten national title. Dante Moore is coming in place of Dylan Gabriel, who is now in the NFL and has flourished for the Ducks. This team defensively is awesome. This team running the ball is great. And Lanning is an excellent coach. He knows that if he keeps this Indiana game close this upcoming Friday in the Peach Bowl, that this game has a chance to be an all-time classic. And I said that on my latest edition of Bando's Blitz that dropped yesterday morning. I said this has a chance to be the game of the entire postseason. I said whoever wins this game, there's a good chance you might find them winning the national title at season's end. That's how balanced both of these teams are. So that's a huge positive there. And I think the Big Ten having 2 college football playoff teams still left in this thing as opposed to one is gigantic because it gives more people the parity that may occur in college football. If this continues, given that at least one Big Ten team will more than likely make the championship, which is great for the league because the league has won the last 2 national titles. The league could win 3 in a row, which would be massive. It would show that the Big Ten has clearly given the SEC a run for its money, if not overtaken it in this current NIL generation of college football, as well as the fact that you now have a new superpower. In the SEC in the mid-2000s, you had Alabama. If Indiana can win this first national title, and given that Kurt Signetti just signed a massive extension, there's no reason to think that Indiana can't win multiple titles if it can win this first one, especially if it's 3 in 5 years or something like that. However it plays out, I think Indiana has a chance to do exactly that. Miami is a cool story, though, because Miami is that ACC team that a lot of people didn't think should have made the playoff. But gosh darn it, Mario Cristobal, as this guy's rolling defensively, they're fantastic. Carson Beck is doing all he needs to just win the game. He doesn't have to be flashy. He doesn't have to do any of this pretty boy stuff. He's doing what he needs to do to win. He doesn't care about the stat sheet. And Cristobal is one of those coaches that's erasing the stigma that, I'm a guy who collapses in the month of November. I'm a guy who can't finish the big game. I'm a guy who can't win when it matters most. He just went in and beat the defending national champions to shake up the entire landscape of the college football playoff. I mean, I don't know what more you want from the guy. The guy's got to keep winning, obviously, but man, he's proven everybody wrong in so many respects, which I think is huge, and I don't think a lot of people are giving him enough credit. All right, we're going to go for another 5-6 minutes. Let's talk about NFL Week 18 now. That was enough of the college football playoff. It's been a fun college football playoff, though, overall. Let's go over survivor picks for week 18 if we can. All right. So, actually, we made a mistake. We on Survivor we took or on Yahoo we took Seattle for the purposes of football forecast. Unfortunately, we took San Francisco, which is disappointing. So we're not adding up to the same record here, but here are my survivors. So we like Atlanta over New Orleans today, the Bengals over the Browns, Vikings over the Packers. Again, Clayton Tune is starting for Green Bay there. We like Dallas over the Giants, Jacksonville over Tennessee, Houston over Indianapolis, Buffalo over the Jets, the Bears over the Lions, Denver over the Chargers, which if Denver wins, they lock up the number 1 seed. The Raiders over the Chiefs in a massive upset. And the reason why I like this is because neither team has anything to play for. Got to win one for Pete Carroll before he's shown the door, in my opinion. This is the week to go do that. So go do it, Vegas. Rams over the Cardinals, Patriots over Miami, the Eagles over the Commanders. And in the AFC North championship game, I like Pittsburgh in an upset outright over the Baltimore Ravens. Going into this week in Yahoo Pick'em, we were 162 and 93. Our record has improved, or excuse me, 164 and 93. Our record has since improved by 2 games, obviously, since then. So we're 2-0 going into the Sunday slate, which begins in about an hour and a half. Gridiron Gurus will take you through. We've Gridiron Gurus in about an hour or so, I think is when it would be, starting at 12:30 Eastern. We're pushing it back due to some scheduling constraints with a few of the guys on the stream, so stay tuned for them after I am done here as well. So those are my survivor plays for the NFL. Let's talk about what games you're going to be getting in your market today, courtesy of 506 Sports. We haven't really done this all year, but I figured with it being the last week and with it being a doubleheader on both networks, it might as well just give you everything you need to know. So let's do that. Week 18 in the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. 1 second. All right, so for January 4th, 2026, here's what you get. In the Chicago area, Green Bay versus Minnesota early. Once you get down to the Springfield area, which I think Champaign would be part of this market as well. Indianapolis plays Houston. Most of the country is actually getting Indianapolis versus Houston, while a small pocket of Cincinnati and Cleveland on CBS will be getting the Bengals and the Cleveland Browns. All right. CBS late. It's a mix. So in Chicago, it's in Chicago, scattered about. It is the Commanders and the Eagles in the Quad Cities and below, and as well in St. Louis. You get the Chargers and the Denver Broncos, which is very interesting. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Champaign, which of course is where I went to school, I think Champaign is getting a different window. It's getting a different set of games this week. And then around the country, most of the country is actually getting Chargers and Broncos. There's a small pocket of the New York area that's getting the Jets and Bills. Only Tampa Bay is getting the Commanders and the Eagles, which is very interesting. Vegas, Kansas City, and those areas obviously are getting the Raiders and the Chiefs. And then in the Fox early window, much of the country is getting Dallas and the New York Giants. Let's see. There's some small pockets of Denver, as well as Houston, Jacksonville, Boston, Portland, Maine, and a few others that will get Tennessee versus Jacksonville, and then New Orleans and Atlanta is only down south for those. All right, Fox late. Most of the country is getting Detroit and the Bears. which is quite surprising, which is very good. Parts of the country will get Miami and New England, specifically in Denver, specifically in Arizona, pretty portion of Arizona. But Phoenix will, of course, get Arizona and the LA Rams. The entire state of Florida is getting Miami and New England. Buffalo, Boston, et cetera, is getting Miami and New England as well. But much of the country is receiving the Bears and the Lions, which is very good. So let me just go through your maps again. Some of the major games that the country will be receiving. Just holistically, CBS, Colts and the Texans for the most part. This also includes Detroit, no. This also includes, let's see. Oh, this also includes anything that is in Chicago. I may have mentioned that earlier. CBS late for the most part. A pocket of Chicago is getting the Commanders and the Eagles, while the bottom half of the state, which I would assume is Champaign as well, is getting the Chargers and the Broncos. Very interesting. Fox early, Dallas and the Giants for much of the country, and then Fox late, Detroit and the Bears for much of the country. So those are out of the regional games. Holistically, those are the 4 games you will get today. Is there are 2 doubleheaders, one in the 1 Eastern window and one in the 4:25 window. So that's it for Week 18, and I think this is a good segue to just kind of briefly talk about really quick what's going to be coming up on Bando's Breakdowns episode 72. So I teased earlier that we might have some good news immediately regarding episode 72, but if we don't have that good news and I can't bring that to you guys in a timely fashion, this is what we will have. We will have a full recap of NFL Week 18. We will have all the particulars surrounding the playoffs, who's fired, who's sticking around. We're going to talk about the college football playoff. We might talk a little bit more about the Music City Bowl. We might even go over how my bowl record is doing as we get into the final week and a half of the bowl season, as it's going to be college football playoff games for the most part from here on out. So that'll be exciting as well. We're also going to be discussing just kind of the schedule for the year, what to expect on the show, and some of the different kinds of content that you will see, as well as a few other things. We may have a miscellaneous section in there. I may answer some general questions that you guys may have about the show overall, just going into the year and what to expect from the show. But nonetheless, though, that will be episode 72 with myself, Zain Bando, again, airing January 9th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, weekly from here on out. All right. That's going to do it, though, for Zan Zinger Part 2. For everybody here at the Empty the Bench Podcast Number, I'm Zain Bando. Again, greatly appreciate all you guys tuning in. We nearly had 40 people tuned in to the stream today. Greatly appreciate all you guys who stuck around, hung out, listened to me talk for about a bunch of different sports here on this edition of Zan Zinger Part 2. Don't go anywhere, though, because Gridiron and Gurus with Grant Winsauer and Michael Rapolo, and I don't think Ben Cruz is on this week because he's on vacation. But stay tuned for those guys. They will go on in about an hour or so. 11:30. They'll go over inactives. They'll go over starters. They'll go over anything related to fantasy. There's not too many fantasy leagues that still play in Week 18, but nonetheless, if there are, I'm sure they'll have nuggets on that. They'll go over the best game of the day, the worst game of the day, and all of their other usual segments that they like to go over. But with that said, though, for everybody here at ETB, my name is Zain Bando. This has been another edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. Once again, stay tuned for the live stream schedule to ramp up here in the coming days and weeks, as we have a lot more stuff to come on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, including live episodes of one of your favorite seasonal shows on this network, the Football Forecast. We'll be bringing you live episodes throughout the entire postseason, so don't miss myself, Johnny Montalbano, Tom Albano, Christy Wilson, Ben Cruz, Grant Winsauer, Michael Rapolo, and so much more, as we will bring you the NFL postseason all the way through until the Super Bowl in Santa Clara, where only one champion, my friends, will be crowned. But until then, Have a great Sunday. Enjoy all the NFL madness that is Week 18, the biggest priority of the bed if you are a sports fan today. Stay warm. Happy New Year to you all, and I will see you guys soon. Shout out to all 39 of you. You guys rock. We will see you next week. Have a good one.